Hello. Today, as part of the Adapting to Your Changing Body month, I'm speaking to Tracy Seider. Tracy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, Claire, on this cold and snowy morning in Toronto. So I'm Tracy, I'm a movement coach and I'm a walker.
And
So
that is what we're going to talk about.
yeah. I do quite a lot of walking, and I'm a big proponent of walking. That was not always the case, and you're probably wondering, what does walking have to do with adapting to your changing body? But for me, walking started to be something that I considered in my mid-40s. I'd always come from this more binary approach where I sat at my desk all day working as an editor. That was my desk job. And then after work, I would go and like kill it at the gym for an hour and tick off my exercise box. And that worked for my 20s and my 30s and a little bit into my 40s. And then I noticed from about my mid-40s, when probably I started to become more perimenopausal, although I didn't know that was going on, that technique of managing my body and managing my weight and keeping fit just suddenly did not work for me any longer. I found that I was starting to put on weight, retaining water, like it was not kind of slimming me down or giving me the benefit that I thought it used to. Like that heavy cardio and watching my heart rate and doing all those things that I was told were right. And I also felt that it started affecting my immune system. After like a really hard workout, I thought, right, I only have time to exercise twice this week, so I'm going to do like a really, really tough workout, get into it and get it done. And a day later I would be sick, and then I would be off for like 2 weeks. So I didn't really think much of it. I thought it was a little bit weird. And I would see people walking, and I thought, well, walking's cool. It's for old people, and I'm not old. I'll get to walking when I'm old. But this is what I need to do, right? And then from about 45, that's when the wheels started to fall off. In retrospect, also perimenopause related, back pain, pelvic pain, urge incontinence, bladder issues, hip pain. Went through all the usual treatments. Everything was just spot treating me. And then I was introduced to the work of Katie Bowman, who is a biomechanist out of the States, who takes a completely revolutionary whole body biomechanics based approach to movement and how movement should be a part of our lives and a part of our whole lives and the way we function throughout the day, rather than just ticking off an exercise box. And so I started to follow her and inculcate her work, and this was so much awesomeness that I eventually went to go and study with her. Anyway, to cut a long story short, what is the thing with walking? So super interesting, because as human beings, walking is the most basic foundational definition of being human. Humans walk, right? But what I discovered through this journey is that not all walking is created equal. And yes, it may be a great advice to tell people, and I see it all over magazines, go and walk at lunchtime, go and walk, go and walk, go and walk. But what most people are not told is that not all walking is created equal. And the way that we walk, the way that our brain now knows how to walk, is not necessarily a calorie burning or muscle using or a nutritious way of walking. And in fact, it sometimes may even be harmful if we're actually using our back muscles to walk us. A lot of people will say they've gone for a walk and they've got terrible back pain because we may have lost the ability to use the right walking muscles or even the right strength. And then so that is what I do as a movement coach. Among other things, I encourage people to walk and I show them how to walk. Because interestingly, two people can go for the same walk and have completely different caloric expenditure from that walk based on how their bodies have moved. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
So there are two ways to walk. The first way, which is what most of us are doing, and certainly I was when I came across this, is a falling walk, where we're really just using gravity to move us. And there's no, or very little, or the wrong muscular work in that walk, right? So what I mean by that, and maybe you want to get up for a minute and try this, is that if I ask you to take a step forward, okay, take a step forward, just take a step forward and tell me, how did you step forward? You take a step forward, and then you take a step forward, and you take a step forward. Now, what most people are doing to step forward is that they're hinging at the hip, right? You're lifting the leg a bit, and really, you're falling. And you're breaking the fall with your knee, putting a lot of load on the knee, and then doing the same thing. And you're falling and falling and falling. And it's being powered from your quads, and all the movement is through the hip. Okay? So these glutes and hamstrings are completely off. That type of walking will not be beneficial or nutritious for the body. Yes, just being outside in nature and moving your body is fantastic. But when you actually learn how to do what's called a posterior driven push-off, that's when all the juiciness and benefit and calorie burning and pelvic floor and bladder protectiveness of walking comes in. So what I mean by that, again, let's try. If I asked you to take a step forward, there are two ways to take a step forward, okay? So let's see if the screen will switch over to you. So
right, hold on, sorry, let me move my chair, right? Okay. Yeah. So I either just walk, which is the falling walk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I think I walk falling.
Okay. Yeah. So right, so the first option is to lift and fall, lift and fall, lift and fall. So if I ask you to balance on one leg and take a leg forward, what are you doing? Most of us are kind of shoving the weight into here, right? And lifting like that.
Lifting like that. That glute is doing all the work.
Right.
Yeah.
The other option,
yeah,
to clear one foot off the ground, because really walking is kind of like it's a moment of balance on one leg.
Yeah.
Okay. And that moment of balance can either, oh, let's get to the other leg as possible, or it can be loads of muscle work. So this is the other option. It's called a pelvic list. Let me stand back a bit. What we need to do to move forward is we need to clear this leg off the ground. So one option to clear the leg off the ground, let's go back, is to just go like that and like that. That's falling walk. The other option is to actually, what's called a pelvic list, where you tighten up these muscles here. If you tighten up these muscles,
yeah,
like that,
yeah,
it lifts the pelvis. So this side of the pelvis goes down, this side of the pelvis goes up, and it gives just clearance to swing the other leg through. That is called a pelvic list. It is quite a tricky move to do. Let me grab my pelvis so that I can explain to you what's happening. We're tightening the muscles. The pelvis is listing from side to side. And I call this a tennis player's walk. I don't know if you've ever seen, you may start to become aware of how people in the street walk. You do see people walking like this, particularly athletes and tennis players, because this is the actually reflexive way that human beings walk. But we've lost this reflexive movement because A, we don't have the strength, and B, we don't have the neuromuscular connection to these lateral hip muscles or to our calf muscles, because this also requires the good length calf muscle. So these are I'm going to show you 3 exercises to try and get a more juicy posterior driven walk. And what we mean by that is, like, if you think of ice skating or something against friction, like rowing a boat, where the movement is back, the strength is back, and it propels you forward. That's what these muscles were made to be doing and are meant to be doing. And that engagement of the glute in your gait cycle is very protective for the pelvic floor and for bladder incontinence or anything to do with that. And I won't go into the reasons for that. We can do that another talk. So this idea of pelvic listing, where we are tightening these muscles here, be careful that it's not a scrunching of the waist. A lot of people, because this can be quite a tough movement to get, it's like you're pushing down into the standing leg to clear the other foot off the ground. Let me just move my camera a little bit. So you're pushing down into this leg. This leg is pushing into the ground. These muscles are tightening, and it's giving you enough clearance to step forward, so that there's actually very little of a bend in the knee as you walk. You may, I mean, although I've been doing this for a while, I still do have a little bit of a knee bend when I do this. These muscles, when you come into this pelvic lift position, these are actually your balancing muscles. And so we want to be able to maintain or get back this ability to pelvic lift and to let it become integrated into our gait cycle. It can be a tough movement to get at first, so we practice a lot of pelvic listing in the work that I do with clients. And when I'm standing around at the bank or waiting in line at the supermarket, I'll just kind of like gently pelvic list away, and nobody even sees me do it. You'll feel that it's super deep muscular work for this whole side hip area. So when you feel that it's like really sore, then you know you're doing it right and you're building up strength there. What we do need to be careful is that we're not hiking the waist. And that's kind of how a lot of people kind of walk, is with this hiking movement. And that can cause pain down here when you're walking. That movement is coming from the butt. From the butt. Yeah. Then the other exercise, and I think we've done this one before, is the calf stretch, because there is also a moment in the gait cycle where the foot goes down. You need to have enough calf length so that the foot is on the ground long enough for these muscles to kick in and propel you forward. If you don't have the right calf length, then you land up taking very short strides that are like boppy. Again, not allowing you to access the glutes and the hamstrings, which are the muscles that should be propelling us. If you think of how like a lion or a tiger in the jungle walks, you can think all that power is coming from the glutes and the hamstrings.
Yeah, it's not coming from the quads at all, is it?
No, in fact, the quads should be super, super quiet, unless you're walking uphill or downhill.
Of course.
And most of us are just driving everything through the quads. We're super quad dominant, because that is the only movement pattern that we have available to us now, because of various lifestyle and movement things. But what is so awesome about the body is that it's so adaptable. And when you start introducing changes and introducing exercises, I remember I was probably doing this work for a good couple of months, and I was walking across the parking lot to pick up my daughter from school, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I can feel my butt is walking me. My butt is walking me. I was so excited, because it does become integrated into the gait pattern after a while. And that's what we want. So pelvic list, yep. Calf stretch, where you take your half dome or your rolled up towel, you come towards the end and you step forward. That's how we work on the calf length, so we need to be doing lots of calf stretching. And then the other exercise that I wanted to show you today is to be able to get what's called hip extension. So hip extension means, right, so we kind of pelvic listing, we're taking a step forward. We need enough openness through the front of the hip flexor here to get that leg behind us comfortably, okay, without the back having to come into it. So the other corrective I wanted to show you today is really just a lunge with a little bit of a difference. So come down, you take one leg out in front of you. I'm sure we've all done this in exercise class before. The difference is that I want you to start with what we call a neutral pelvis. I won't go into too much detail about that now. Just make sure you're not too tucked or too untucked. You want to kind of get, if you put the heel of your hand on your sticky outie bone and the middle finger on your pubic bone, those should kind of be in a horizontal plane to each other. So
okay.
actually, I mean here on the pelvis. These are the ASIS, the sticky outie bones. That's the pubic bone. So you kind of put your hand like that to find a neutral pelvis.
Okay, yeah.
So you don't want to be tucked, you don't want to be untucked. You want to be neutral. And then you lunge from here, but without moving your back. You just lunge forward. And interestingly, the range of motion here available is only about 30 degrees. So we don't want this yoga thing, okay? Because that yoga thing is showing me how nicely I can extend my back. The focus is on here. So it's not going to be a huge amount of movement, but you do want to feel a nice opening into this hip flexor area. And that's how you start to get a more juicier walk, right?
So I'm just going to...
Pelvic list, hip extension. And then you also want to find walks that are more nutritious, because we tend to only walk on flat level terrain all the time. Flat level, flat level, flat level. So try walk on the grass. You'll find walking on the grass so much more challenging for your body, okay? And slow your walk down. I remember when I first started this work, my family always used to complain that I'm walking so slowly. It's better to slow down and not power through your quads. It's better to slow down and really feel those muscles working than to just power through. You're going to get more calorie expenditure and more muscle building and bone loading if you slow down and actually use the muscles rather than momentum and the quads.
Wow. So I'm just going to ask you one quick thing. Can you just show us, sort of in the background there, just once more, show us a falling walk and then a glute-led walk. Just show us what they both look like again, just so that we can sort of recap on that.
It's really subtle.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's how am I going to take this leg forward? What is my strategy for taking my first step, right? Mm-hmm. Two strategies are available. One is I bend and I...
Yeah, which is what we all tend to do.
Which is what we all tend to do.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's almost a little bit of leaning forward, and all the motion, all the strength is in the quads. That I can feel that my butt, my hands are doing nothing. They're not involved whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Strategy number one is to bend from the hip and go forward. Strategy number two is for the motion to come from here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm listing there and going forward. I'm slowing it down.
Yeah.
But can you...
Yeah.
Super subtle. And then
it is, but that looks so much more controlled. That looks like your glutes are working, like your core is working. Yes. It looks less floppy, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. the core does switch on.
Yeah.
The other thing for doing your posterior push-off, okay, and then you can go faster. This will also, it's very protective of aging. Very protective of aging because, as you said, it's not just this uncontrolled motion. That moment of pelvic listing, these are, let me move over so you can see, these are your balance muscles.
Yeah.
And when you're actually using your balance to walk, you've got less chance of falling.
Yeah.
Because as we get older, losing our balance becomes more of a fear. And so we land up doing more and more and more of a guarded walk. It's a guarded walk. And then we get to this kind of like guarded, because the less you use these muscles, the less they work and the less they can do for you and the less they can balance you. And so you become more and more and more guarded and get bigger and bigger, more supportive shoes.
Yes.
But we should be going the other way. We should be keeping these muscles, and we absolutely can. It has nothing to do with age whatsoever. We should be keeping these muscles strong and working for us.
Yeah.
So all day long, because that's your gym workout. When these muscles are doing what they're meant to be doing, exercising and going to the gym is the cherry on top. Because exercise is part of this bigger thing of being a human being, which is movement.
Yes, and absolutely, from the point of view of perimenopause and the rest of life, we know that there's a risk of osteoporosis. We know there's a risk of bone fracture. Every single thing we can do that guards us against that has to be good, doesn't it? And as you've absolutely said, that isn't going and beasting yourself in the gym. That isn't the way to still be strong at 80. The way to still be strong at 80 is to train your body to work right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in terms of the bone density, when you are using this motion of loading the muscle and loading the femur in your gait cycle, that is stimulating the bone density. Yeah. It does bring in another factor, and that's alignment, which we've spoken about in a previous interview. People can look up that interview on alignment. Is that you are not going to be able to access these muscles and access that kind of bone density motion on the head of the femur if you tipped forward.
Yes.
And what will tip you forward? Wearing shoes with a heel. If you're wearing shoes with a heel, you will not be able to find these muscles in your gait cycle. So we do need to be very aware of the shoes we have on our feet, and we will need to do footwear as a completely different interview, because it's a whole subject in and of itself. Because what I wasn't even aware of is that if you put your hand in your sneaker, in your running shoe, there's a high probability that it has you in what's called a positive heel, that it has you raised with your heel higher than your toes, because that's how they make shoes, unless you specifically look for what's called a zero drop shoe, where the heel and the toe are on the same line. It is not having you lifted like that. So please try and be aware of that. If you can manage a minimal shoe, you absolutely should transition to a minimal shoe. Don't go straight from wearing shoes that have you as a heel right down to minimal with no support. We need to be, you can absolutely hurt yourself. It probably took me a good 6 to 9 months to transition to more minimal footwear. And if you are not walking on trails or live in the mountains, then you do need to still wear a minimal shoe that does still have a bit of cushioning, because when you're pounding those pavements, if you live in an urban setting and you are walking on pavements most of the time, you do need a little bit of cushioning. But at the same time, the two have to be together. The corrective exercises, which is an example of what I showed you there, it's getting our bodies primed to be able to do a bigger movement like walking with more involvement of the muscles. And there's quite a big brain body component to that. So we work on the correctives, we get the body working in a more nutritious, expansive way, so that just our general movements throughout the day are working for us instead of just not working or working against us. So we'll have to talk about shoes another time. That's the whole thing.
Definitely. That's been so interesting. Thank you ever so much, Tracy. That's been brilliant.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And also, if I could just add, if people want to learn a little bit more about this and about alignment, I do have a menopause movement manual. Maybe we can include the link down here to go through what good alignment is and how to get that more vertical straight alignment. And then I also offer a complimentary half-hour movement assessment, and you can access that from my website.
Cool. We will put all the links in when I share this video.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.